We are doing a bodyweight mat Pilates class today, so you don't need any weights, just a mat or something to provide cushion from the floor. I'm going to have you guys start seated, so you'll have feet and knees together. Go ahead and bring the hands back behind the thighs, and you're sitting as tall and upright as you can. Take a big inhale, and as you exhale, you're just tucking the tailbone under and rolling the spine down to where your low back is on the mat. You can bring the feet a little bit closer to you. So from there, you're going to bring your right leg up into tabletop, and we want the low back pressing down into the mat. So make sure you're pulling the abs down to help with that. Both hands are going to come back behind the right thigh. You're going to twist the chest open to that side of the room, and then little crunches, curling the chest up an inch, back an inch. So breathing through that movement, belly button pulls deeper into the back body, cinching the waist in. Make sure you're breathing into the sides of the ribs on your inhales, exhaling, pulling the belly button deeper into the back. And just small crunches here. You can use the arms a little bit to help you come up. You're only moving the chest up an inch or two, back an inch or two, not a big movement. Make sure there's no strain on the neck. We're going to go ahead and switch sides. So come back through center. You can let go of that thigh, place the foot back down, lift that opposite leg up into tabletop. So knee over the hip, shin parallel to the floor. Both hands back behind that opposite thigh. Twist the chest to that side of the room. Little crunches. And just keep your breath flowing with you through that movement. And last four, keeping the abs pulled in and together. And then back to center. You can bring that foot back down, let your head and upper back relax down. Take a deep breath there, big inhale, big exhale. And then you can stay where you are. I'm just gonna scoot down a little bit. We're gonna lift that right leg up into tabletop. So lifting one leg, again, the knees over the hip, shin is parallel to the floor. Before you lift the other leg, just make sure your back is pressed down. So engage the core, lift the other leg up into tabletop. You can keep a fist distance between your knees and your feet. And we're gonna let the right leg lower towards the ground. You can tap the toes to the mat if that range of motion works for you, and bring the leg back up into tabletop, and then we're alternating legs. So one leg at a time, foot comes down. Make sure it's a really slow and controlled movement. So we want to make sure that the core is working, that we're using those abdominals to help pull the leg up each time, as well as controlling the foot back down to the ground. So you're only lowering the leg as much as you can, making sure that you're keeping everything in form and intact. So making sure that that low back is pressed down into the mat the whole time. If your back is arching or hurting, just don't take the leg as low. Your foot doesn't have to come down all the way to the ground. So we're just keeping that awareness that form is more important here than range of motion. Alright guys, one more each side. And then go ahead and zip up the inner thighs so both legs are pressed together. You're lowering both feet on your inhale, exhale, both legs lift. So you can see here my feet aren't touching the ground. They're not lowering all the way down this time. That's the extent that I can move them to where my low back stays pressed down. I don't want to let the back lift off the mat at all. One more. And then we're going to extend the legs straight up to the ceiling. Flex the feet. You can actually flex and point a few times, moving through the ankles. And then we're going to keep the feet flexed. Try to make sure those legs are as straight as you can get them up above the hips, so at that 90-degree angle. We're going to trace a small circle with the feet, moving to the right, down a few inches, to the left, up a few inches, and pause. And then switch direction to the left, down a few inches, to the right, up a few inches, pause through center. So you're alternating the direction of the circle, one to the right, one to the left. The circle you're tracing, it should mostly be on the ceiling, maybe a little bit on the wall in front of you as well, but make sure it's not too big. It's really small, just about the size of a soccer ball maybe. And then hips and pelvis are as level and as stable as you can get them. So we want to make sure that the pelvis and the hips, they're not rocking side to side or tilting forward and back. We're keeping them nice and stable. So you're not letting the hips lift up off the mat either. All right, last one each way. Bend the knees, gently bring your feet back down to the mat. Feet are going to be hips width apart, and then we're going into some bridging. So go ahead and relax the shoulders down your back. Make sure the neck is soft and relaxed. You're going to press those triceps, upper arms into the mat. Tuck the tailbone under as you inhale. Squeeze through the backs of the legs to lift the hips up into that bridge. So a lot of your spine and your back is up off the mat, but the shoulder blades are on the mat still. So the upper back is grounded. From there, you're going to roll down nice and slow. The upper back, mid back, low back, and then tuck the tailbone under again. Inhale, exhale as you lift the hips and spine up off the mat. And then starting to roll back down. So making sure you have your breath moving with you here. Nice, slow, and controlled movement. And then on the next lift, we're going to hold it and just pulse the hips up to the ceiling. So a couple inches up, a couple inches down, squeezing through the glutes, through the hamstrings. And then taking that into a circle. So keep the hips lifted, take them to the right, down a few inches, to the left, up a few inches. It's kind of a hula hoop movement, but much slower, more controlled. So moving through the waist and creating mobility through the spine. And then go ahead and switch direction. Okay, and then you guys can roll back down slow. This time you're going to bring heels together, toes apart. So we're still going into another bridge, but different feet position. So a little turnout with the feet, make sure the heels are connected. Tuck the tailbone under, roll the hips up, hold that lift. Lift the heels if you can, and hold that lift. And then just make sure your arms and neck are still relaxed, but you're really pressing the arms into the mat here. Here, the backs of the arms, those triceps are doing a lot of work. You're going to bring the knees together, so zip up the inner thighs and then press the knees wide. So inner thighs zip up, outer glutes, outer thighs work as you push the knees out to either side of the room, keeping the heels glued together nice and tight the whole time. And then one more opening, you're going to hold the knees wide and pulse the hips up to the ceiling. And then rolling the spine back down. You can lower the heels, and you can give the knees a big hug into the chest and just rock the back out side to side. All right, you guys are gonna keep the knees pulled in. Take a big inhale, lift the head, so chin towards chest. Curl the chest up over the rib cage, hold that lift. So the shoulder blades are up off the mat now. You're gonna straighten your right leg out to the wall in front of you, so about a 45-degree angle. Use the arms to curl your chest up a little bit higher. Make sure that extended leg is super straight and energized. And we're going to inhale. Keep inhaling as you switch legs. Exhale, exhale. So inhale, switch inhale, switch exhale, switch exhale. So you can pick the pace up a little bit to match that breath pattern. Just making sure, most importantly though, that you're breathing throughout the movement. Doesn't have to match what I suggested. each side. And then we're just gonna draw both knees back in, let the head drop back. Legs will end up in tabletop again, so you can imprint that low back into the mat. And take the arms just out to a T, or just somewhere out to the sides of the room that's not right next to the body. We're gonna draw the legs to the right, let the left hip lift off the mat, but keep your shoulder girdle on the mat. And then exhale, draw the legs to center. Inhale, take the legs to the opposite side. Exhale, using the core to bring the legs back through center each time. So you're cinching the waist in and just making sure the shoulder girdle stays heavy on the mat the whole time. All right, we're gonna do the same thing with straight legs. So lengthen the legs to the ceiling. Point the toes, as long as that feels okay. If you have really tight hamstrings, you can just keep going with the bent leg position, legs in tabletop. That'll be a little bit easier. But if you can lengthen the legs to the ceiling, try that. And you want to make sure the upper back, shoulder blades, shoulder girdle is heavy on the mat, so make sure that that's not lifting. One more each side. All right, go ahead and bend the knees. Give the knees a big hug into the chest one more time. We're gonna curl the chest up over the rib cage again here. So inhale, nod the chin, exhale, curl the chest up over the ribs. Hold that lift. This time both legs are gonna extend out to the wall in front of you. 45-degree angle, both arms reach back to the wall behind you, and then you'll circle the arms around and pull the knees into the chest. So big inhale, everything reaches away. Exhale, circle the arms around, knees pull in. Make sure your legs stay together on this one. Your arms are the only thing circling. 2 more. Good. We're gonna hold that lift. Hands come back behind the head, wide elbows. Use that to lift yourself up a little bit higher. Straighten that right leg out to about a 45-degree angle again. We're going to twist towards the bent knee through the waist. So rotating that upper body. And then just switching legs and twisting the other way. And switch. And switch. So make sure that you have the neck supported. Hands behind the head and the neck. Wide elbows. When you rotate, you're reaching the armpit towards the knee, not the elbow to the knee. Okay, and breathing. So inhale, exhale. Okay, same breath pattern that we did earlier. Inhale, switch, exhale, exhale. Tightening up all the muscles in the legs. Pointing the toes. Last one each side. And back to center. You can relax the head down. Turn the head side to side for a moment. Let the neck stretch out. Alright, both legs are going to extend up to the ceiling one more time. We're going to nod the chin towards the chest last time here. Curl up over the rib cage. Hold that lift. Use your arms to really let you come up a little bit higher. Walk the hands up towards the calves, and then left leg's going to lower towards the mat. You'll pull the right leg a little bit closer to you, and then switch and switch. So little pulse on each leg as the leg lifts up. Make sure that you're using those abs to help control the movement. And belly button keeps pulling into the back body on those exhales. So we're trying not to let the abdominals dome up at all. Cinching the waist in. You can flex the feet, try switching it up a little bit, get more of a stretch through those hamstrings. One more each side. Alright guys, both knees back into the chest, let your head drop down. Take a breath. We're going to extend both legs out onto the mat now, going into roll-ups. So your legs are long, inner thighs zipped up. You can flex the feet. Reach the arms back to the wall behind you. Take a big inhale. Nod the chin towards the chest. Bring the arms up towards the ceiling. We're going to curl the chest forward over the rib cage. As you exhale, scoop the abs in. Use your core to help you come forward in that way, and then reach for the feet at the top. Let the back stretch out. Spine rolls down slow. Try to make sure those shoulders are down the back. And as you roll down, it's one bone at a time. Low back, mid back, upper back. Exhaling to reach the arms back to the wall behind you again. We'll do a few more like that. So inhale, nod the chin in. Exhale, curl the chest up over the rib cage. Scoop those abs in. Use the core to help you lift forward. So you're rounding forward that whole time. Reaching for the feet as far as feels okay for you. And then nice and slow on the way back. You can go back like just halfway like this if it's too much to come up from laying down onto the ground completely. So if you are just going back halfway, just rounding back and then moving forward from there into that same forward fold. Inhale, exhale, drawing the shoulders down, scooping the abs in, reaching for the feet. All right, we're just gonna do one more like that. Nice and slow, you're rolling down, shoulders away from the ears. Last one here, inhale, nodding the chin in. Curling the chest up over the rib cage, scooping the abs in. Exhale as you fold forward. Let the back stretch out. All right, and then we'll sit tall. You can open the legs the width of the mat, so the feet will flex, toes pulled back towards the shins, and your legs are super long and energized. So really try to reach the heels away from your upper thighs. Imprint the backs of the legs into the mat. Make sure you're sitting as tall as you can. We're up on those sits bones. Lift the ribs up away from the hips. Hands are going to come onto the shoulders so you have nice wide elbows. Big inhale. You're going to exhale, twist to the right. Little pulse to that side. Inhale through center. Exhale left. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. So you're twisting through just from underneath the ribs, through the waist as much as you can. Rotate to either side. So if you can twist further, that's awesome. But just going to whichever range of motion, whichever point you can. All right, guys, we're gonna add a fold to that. So find center, take your arms out. You're gonna rotate right. You're gonna fold forward over that right leg, reaching the left hand past the right foot. Press that back palm up to the ceiling, fold as much as you can. Inhale up through center. Exhale, twist and fold. Inhale. And then picking that pace up, depending on what feels okay for you. But we're deepening the scoop in those abs. We're reaching past the foot as far as we can and reaching that back palm up in opposition, up and back in opposition of that front arm reaching forward. Okay, one more to the left. And then come back through center. You can let the arms come down. Bring the feet a little bit closer towards each other, so they'll be more hips width apart this time, so not as wide as the mat, but just legs straight out in front of the hips. Arms are going to reach straight out in front of the shoulders. You're still sitting super tall. Big inhale. As you exhale, you're just pulling the mid back towards the wall behind you. So I'm not leaning back, which would look more like this, and I'm not leaning forward either, which would be way out here. My shoulders are still directly over my hips, so I'm just changing the shape in my spine. We're just rounding the spine, pulling the mid back towards the wall behind us, scooping the abs in, and then inhale, restack, one bone at a time, so lifting the ribs up away from the hips. Shoulders are down. Exhale, pulling the mid back towards the wall behind you. You can let the head drop down a little bit because that's rounding in line with your spine. Inhale, restack. Exhale, scooping the abs in. Inhale. So this one might look simple, but if we're engaging everything as we should be correctly, it's actually pretty tough to just maintain those two positions. Rounding. Good. So you're really scooping the abs in as you round the spine. Belly button pulls back to the wall behind you. Head drops down a little bit. Your shoulders should be doing some work just to keep your arms reaching out. And then sitting tall. Even that should be tough. We're keeping those legs as straight as we can, so there's work in the backs of the legs. Reaching the heels away from your upper thighs. And just one more exhale. Good. And then let the arms come down. You can roll the shoulders up, back, and down. All right, you guys are gonna find a side plank. So coming onto your left forearm, I'm gonna have both legs straight, top foot in front of the bottom foot, so staggered. You could also have your feet stacked, or you can have the bottom leg bent onto the mat here, so that when you come up it's modified. It's a little bit easier. The bottom shin and calf would be on the ground. Otherwise, both legs long to make it a little bit harder. So you're gonna lift the hips up off the mat, make sure that bottom elbow is right underneath your shoulder. Reach the top arm up to the ceiling. You can look forward or you can look up towards that top hand, whatever feels good for your neck. But big deep breaths. Make sure that you're cinching the waist in. Feet are flexed. We're zipping up the inner thighs, squeezing the glutes. You can pulse the hips up and down for more work, or you can just hold the side plank. But last 4. Good. And then gently lower down. Good. We're going to just swing those legs forward, move the legs forward to the bottom front corner of the mat. Your hips are still stacked, shoulder girdle still stacked. We're still lifted up away from the mat here. Top leg's gonna lift up hip height, and then you're kicking that leg forward and back. So you're only moving the leg back as far as you can keep the hips stacked. You don't want to let that top hip rock back. So inhale forward, exhale back. Still looking forward here, keeping the back of the neck long. And ideally this top leg is lifted hip height. We don't want to drop it too low. Okay, 3 more like that. On this last one, press it back, hold that push back, hold the lift, point the toes, and just really small circles through that hip. And then go ahead and switch direction. So just creating mobility through the hip here. And then bring the leg forward towards the front, or just the middle of the mat. You're gonna externally rotate. You're gonna lift that leg as high as you can, and then flex to lower the leg. We'll point to lift the leg up, might not be very high, and flex to lower. And again, we're just lifting as high as we can while keeping the leg in line with the body and the hips stacked. We want to make sure we're not rocking back. One more. Okay, bring the leg forward to meet that bottom leg. You're going to lay down onto that bottom arm completely, so lengthen the arm out, relax the head down, bring the legs back so that they're in line with the rest of the body. So instead of to that front corner, now they're to the middle of the mat. Relax the neck, draw the shoulders down the back. Point the toes. You're going to zip up the inner thighs and lift both legs a couple inches up off the ground, and then gently lowering them back down. So it's not a very big movement or lift, but you're still working those inner thighs. You're working that outer glute, outer thigh of the top leg, and the obliques, those side abdominals. So making sure that we're cinching the waist in, breathing through that movement. Okay, 2 more. Alright, and then go ahead and bend the knees back in towards the chest. You can prop yourself up to seated. We're going to flip over. We'll go into your side plank on the other side first. So elbow down underneath the shoulder. feet are stacked or staggered, top foot forward, bottom foot back. You're gonna lift that bottom side waist up away from the ground, away from the mat. Bottom elbows right underneath that shoulder. Top arm reaches up to the ceiling. You can look up or you can look forward. Just make sure that neck is feeling okay. Big deep breaths, cinching the waist in, zipping up those inner thighs. You can add the movement of the hips if you want a little bit extra work. Otherwise, you're just holding it. Nice strong core either way. Okay guys, go ahead and gently lower down. Bring the legs forward to that bottom front corner of the mat. Make sure the hips are stacked, feet are flexed. So you're gonna lift that top leg, you're going into your kick, so just swinging the leg forward and then pressing it back towards the wall behind you or the back corner of the mat, and just making sure that while we're there, everything else stays intact. So you're cinching that waist in, you're keeping that top hip right above the bottom hip, you're not letting it rock forward or back, and you're squeezing into that hamstring and glute of the top leg to help push the leg back each time. Draw it forward with control, working against that body weight and against gravity. So big deep breaths. We'll do 3 more like this. Just keeping those abs pulled in and together. And the next time you press back, hold it back there, point the toes, little circles through that hip. Big inhales, big exhales. You're still engaging all the muscles in those legs. That bottom leg is nice and strong to help keep you stable. Switch direction with that circle. Top leg. Okay, and then we'll bring that top leg towards the middle of the mat, externally rotate, so you're just from parallel, you're turning the toes and knee up towards the ceiling. You're lifting the leg as high as you can towards the ceiling and lowering it back down. And still keeping that bottom side waist lifted if you can. This is a tough one. All right, just one more. And then bring those legs together and down. You're gonna move the legs to the back end of the mat now, or just in line with the rest of the body, so it should be to the back edge of the mat. Let that bottom arm lengthen onto the ground, and then just resting your head down onto that bottom arm. So hips are stacked. You can kind of check in, make sure the hips and the shoulder girdle are stacked. We're going to flex the feet, zip up those inner thighs, lift both legs away from the ground, lower both legs. So inner thighs are working to help you lift, but also those abdominals are doing a lot of the work. Cinching the waist in. Outer glute, outer thigh of that top leg should be working. And just breathing through that movement. Belly button keeps pulling in and up under the rib cage. Nice strong core. Alright guys, last 4. And then you can bend the knees back in, carefully propping yourself back up to seated. Okay, we're gonna flip over into an all fours position, so hands and knees. Hands are gonna be right underneath the shoulders, knees right underneath the hips. You're gonna tuck the toes under. Use your abs to lift the knees an inch or 2 off the mat, and just make sure you have a nice flat back. So there's one long line from the crown of the head back to the tailbone. We're just gonna drop the knees down, lift up an inch or 2, drop down, up an inch or 2. And make sure it's really soft on the way down. You're just super gently tapping the mat. Even if you want to instead keep a hover and lower and lift, you don't have to bring the knees down all the way. But make sure it's controlled. You're using those low abs to help the movement. Cinching the waist in and breathing. breathing into the sides of the ribs on those inhales. Shoulders are sliding down the back the whole time. Last 2. And then we're gonna lift the hips up and back into that downward dog. Let the weight shift back, hips back towards the feet, and then head down in between your arms and just stretch there for a moment. You can drop your heels towards the ground. We're gonna let one heel lift, bending into that same leg knee, dropping the other heel, and then just switching. So one heel at a time, one heel lowers, one heel lifts, and you're stretching through the calves and the hamstrings. Alright guys, both heels down. You're going to shift your weight forward into plank. Shoulders come over the wrists. You can adjust your feet or hands if you need to. Shoulders are down the back. And then we're going to rock forward a few inches, hinging through the shoulders and the ankles, and rock back a few inches. So heels reach forward as the shoulders move forward in front of the hands, and then reaching the heels back. Your shoulders will naturally move back with that. Last one. We're going to shift the weight, scoop the abs, lift up and back into that downward dog again. This time holding your down dog, you're going to bend both knees, the heels can lift high, and then both legs lengthen. So keeping the weight shifted back, just the legs are moving. Keeping the tailbone sticking out, nice flat back. Last 2. Alright guys, shift the weight forward into your plank. Gently bring your knees down underneath your hips. And you can sit the hips back to the heels, take a child's pose if that feels good. So you can widen the knees a little bit, reach the arms long, let your head drop down gently. Big inhale, big exhale. One more breath. And then coming back up into that same all fours position, nice flat back. We're just going to take a cat-cow here. So you're going to inhale, stick the tailbone up towards the ceiling, head up, chest open, draw the shoulders down your back. And then exhale as you round your spine. So pull the mid back up towards the ceiling, head drops down, tuck the tailbone under. Inhale to release. Tailbone up, belly down, head up, chest open. Exhale to round. And one more time like that. Inhale. And exhale. Okay, and then go ahead and bring the right hand behind your head and your neck so that elbow points out to the side of the room. You're going to exhale as you rotate, opening the chest up gently to that side. Inhale, come back to center. Exhale, twist. Inhale back. One more. And then coming back, leveling out. Opposite side, bringing that hand back behind the head and the neck. Rotating as you exhale. Inhale. Exhale to rotate. So it doesn't have to be a very big twist. You're still keeping your hips squared off towards the ground. You're just opening your chest up as much as you can to that side of the room. Bring that hand back down. Bring the hands back towards your knees. So you're coming up into that tall kneeling position now. So one long line from the head all the way down to the knees. You're going to reach your arms straight out to the wall in front of you, just in front of those shoulders, but relax the shoulders down your back. We're hinging from the knees to lean the whole body back. So you're going to inhale to lean back a few inches. So you're not arching the back. You're not bending into the hips and the waist at all. You're moving from that knee joint. So you can see how one long line, the whole body from the head to the knees is one piece instead of like sitting the hips back towards the heels. That's very different, and we're not arching, okay? So whole body, one piece from the head to the knees leans back. You're moving from those knees down here. Couple more. And you're gonna add some arm movement with it if you can. So on this next one, you'll rotate to your right, pull the right elbow back, open the chest up to that side. Exhale, come back through center. Inhale as you lean back, rotate. Exhale, inhale. So as long as that twist feels okay, You can also switch the breath if you like that exhale on your rotation better. Okay, one more each side. Good. And then you guys can overlap one forearm over the other. Now you are going to bend into the waist and the hips, sit the hips back towards the heels. Make sure your torso's up over the hips and not pitched forward. Okay, so we're super upright. Lift the hips and lower, and you're just hovering up off the heels. So make sure you're not sitting back all the way. You're sitting back as low as you can that feels okay on your knees and your quads, but not all the way to resting. 2 more. Okay, go ahead and switch which forearm is on top, and then halfway back into that same position, you're just going to lift and lower the hips from here, so 1 inch up, 1 inch down. Nice strong core, squeezing into the glutes and the hamstrings, and then lifting up out of that position again. You can kind of shake that out side to side a little bit. You're going to swing the legs out in front of you. We'll do a little bit more work seated. So you can have feet and knees together, zip up the inner thighs, bring the hands back behind you underneath those shoulders, going into tricep dips. So you're going to lift those hips up towards the ceiling. Find kind of a tabletop position there. One long line if you can from the shoulders to the knees, and then find just holding that. We're going to bend into the elbows, point the elbows straight back to the wall behind you, and lengthen. So just firming those triceps up. So squeezing into the backs of the arms. Make sure you're not letting the hips dip too low. You're bending through the elbows to lower instead of bringing the tailbone or the butt down towards the mat. Okay, halfway down, little pulses. And then go ahead and lengthen the arms. Let the tailbone lower down. You're going to roll back onto your low back here. So just to the low back, the mid back and upper back are still lifted. We're going to pull the right knee into the chest and lift that left leg up towards the ceiling, okay? And then take an inhale. As you exhale, you're going to let both legs lengthen and lower out a little bit. The upper back lowers towards the mat. And then switch, pulling the opposite knee in as you lift. So both legs lengthen, the chest lowers, one knee pulls in, lift. Make sure that your low back stays pushed down into the mat. If it starts to lift, try not to lower the legs as much. One more each side. Good. Pull both knees in, let your head and chest drop back. You can turn your head side to side one more time here. And then we'll rock back up to seated. We're gonna flip over onto hands and knees again for push-ups. So you can swing the legs back behind you and then scoot the knees back. I'm gonna do push-ups on hands and knees here, but if you want, you can do them in full plank. That makes it a little bit harder. We're gonna go wide elbows first. So make sure the hands are open the width of the mat, pretty wide, and then just lowering the chest towards the mat on your inhale as you bend the elbows. Exhale, pushing up. Elbows point out to either side of the room. Nice strong core. Make sure your chest is coming down towards the mat first, not the head or the chin. Two more. Good, and then lowering the feet, you can sit the hips back towards the heels. Take a quick child's pose. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and come down onto our stomachs all the way, so you can gently lower the chest down. Arms are going to reach out to the wall in front of you, so legs are extended back, point the toes, and then reach the arms forward, palms can face each other. Take a big inhale. As you exhale, pull the abs up into the back body, and then we're going to lift the arms a couple inches off the mat and lift the legs as well. And then inhale, exhale, lift the chest a little bit higher. Make sure your back feels okay. Scoop the abs in. Little flutters through the arms and the legs. So you're going through, you're swimming here. Little flutters, arms and legs. You're moving through the shoulders and through your hips. Squeezing into the glutes and the hamstrings. Keeping everything really energized and reaching long. So reaching through the fingers, reaching through the toes. Big deep breaths. And then go ahead and gently, you can bend your elbows, lower the body down to the mat. One ear comes to the ground. Take a big inhale. Exhale all that air out. And then we'll find some back extension. So you're going to bring the hands right underneath your shoulders. Elbows pull in towards your ribs. So nice tight elbows. Fingers are pointing forward. Look down towards the mat. Lift your abs up into your back first. And that will, in response to tailbone, will kind of tuck under. Inhale, you're going to lift your head up. Start to lift the chest away from the mat. And then use your arms as you exhale to push yourself up a little bit higher. So you're getting into more of that upper body, arm, and upper back strength. And then belly comes down first. Chest down. Exhaling, head down. Okay, inhale, eyes up. Chest lifts. Exhale when you can't lift your back up any higher without the use of your arms. Then you're using your arms to push yourself up a little bit higher. So just coming up as high as feels okay for you. Make sure that the shoulders are down your back. I don't care if you get to straight arms. That's not the goal. The goal is to be working through that mid and upper back and just creating mobility and flexibility in the spine. So if you're not coming up to straight arms, that's totally fine. I just want to make sure that when you are lifted, your shoulders aren't up to the ears, your shoulders are down your back. So don't be worrying about if your arms are straight. You want your elbows pulled into your ribs, you want your shoulders down. We're just going to do one more. So keeping form, inhale, eyes up. Exhale, make sure your abs are pulled in before you lift. And then when you can't come up any higher with just the upper back, then you press the hands into the mat and really engage the backs of the arms and those upper back muscles to help you come up. And then slowly rolling down. All right, guys, we're gonna overlap one hand over the other. Elbows are wide to either side of the room. Let your forehead come down onto your hands. Keep your legs wide, but just bend your knees and bring heels together, toes apart, flex your feet. And we're just gonna pulse the knees up towards the ceiling, but first scoop the abs and make sure that those abs are lifted. Tuck the tailbone under, and then press the knees up an inch or two and down an inch or two. So it won't be very big, but we're just squeezing through right where the glutes and hamstrings come together to help lift the knees up. All right, last 4. And then you can straighten the legs out. We're gonna have the legs open the width of the mat again, point the toes, lift the legs towards the ceiling, squeezing through the glutes and the hamstrings. Bring the legs together if you can, zip up those inner thighs, and then open. Legs together and open. So you're using the inner thighs to draw those legs together every time, and then you're working into outer glutes, outer thighs to open the legs back out the width of the mat. Two more. Alright, go ahead and bring the legs down. You can bring the hands back underneath the shoulders. Lift the hips up and back, scoop the abs in. Sit back into your child's pose one more time. Knees together or apart, whatever feels good. Take a breath. Exhale. Come back up into that all fours position. Knees or hips width apart. Hands underneath the shoulders, nice flat back. We're going to extend that right leg straight back towards the wall behind us. And then your left arm straight forward. So you have opposite arm, opposite leg reaching long. Make sure to hold that lift, hip height, shoulder height as best you can. We're going to start to lower the arm and leg, tapping the hand and the foot to the mat, and then lifting them back up, hip height, shoulder height. So keeping everything long and energized. Abs are lifted up into the back body. Breathing through that movement. Last 4. 2 more. Alright, gently bring the hand and the knee back down. You can shift that weight around if you need to at all, but make sure you keep that flat back. And then same thing, the other side. Left leg extends back. Right arm reaches forward. Find your balance and your stability first, and you can always just keep holding this if you need to. Otherwise, we're going to add that movement, lowering and lifting the arm and the leg. And in between step, you can just have both hands down and just be moving the back leg. That would be a little bit easier, like middle ground between holding the movement stable and moving both the arm and the leg. Bringing the hand and knee back down. Walk the hands back towards the knees again. We're just going to round the spine here and kind of roll up to a tall kneeling position. Go ahead and step your right foot forward towards the front end of the mat. You can bring one or both hands down to do that if you need to. So both hands onto the mat now. You're going to lean the hips forward to get that back hip stretched out. So front foot is underneath the knee. You're just stretching here for a moment. Take a breath. And then we're going to walk the hands back a bit and straighten that front leg to stretch the hamstring. So you can lift the toes, sit the hips back towards the heel, drop the chest towards that straight leg knee as much as possible. And then one more time, shift the weight forward into that front leg, bend your knee over your foot. You're going to step that foot, walk it to the outside edge of the mat, the right side, so that the right hand can come to the inside of that foot. And then you're just stretching the hips here at a little bit of a different angle. So leaning the hips forward. And then same thing on the other side. So you can shift the hips back, bring that forward leg back. Step the left foot in between the hands towards the front edge of the mat, just underneath that knee. Lean the hips forward. Take a breath. And then you can straighten through that front leg, lift the toes, lift the hips back towards the heel. Walk the hands back a bit to support that position. One more time, shifting the weight forward. Step the left foot to the outer edge of the mat, the hand to the inside of the foot, and then leaning the hips forward again. Just getting that left hip stretched out at a different, compressed at a different angle. Okay, shifting the hips back, walk the hands back. You can bring both knees back, and then you're going to come to seated. Bring the bottoms of the feet together for butterfly. So you'll have wide knees. You can press the knees down towards the mat on either side. You can pitch the torso forward. If it's enough to just sit tall for you, that's fine as well. You can sit upright, and some people like to sway the knees side to side or press the hands or the elbows out onto the knees, but whatever feels good for you here. Big deep breath. Alright, and then you guys are all set. Great job today. Thanks for coming. See you next time.